Hello and welcome to Live from the Studio, brought to you by Audible. And I cannot thank Audible enough for sponsoring us this year, because we wouldn't be able to do any of this, and it's just a magnificent setup, and I'm just so excited to be part of it. So huge thanks to our sponsors. We are live streaming to Picture House's YouTube, Facebook and Twitter channels, live from Sundance Film Festival London 2023, day 2, amazing. On Live from the Studio, we are interviewing a cross-section of everyone involved in Sundance, especially the filmmakers and the creatives behind the scenes you don't normally get to meet. This show is for anyone interested in independent film, the future of film, celebrating film. We are here for you and have some extraordinary guests lined up. On tomorrow's show, we have the directors of the extraordinary documentary Fantastic Machine, Maximilian van Artik and Axel Danielsen. We also have Celine Song, who's the director of the simply exquisite Past Lives, which I know all of you want to go and see. And we also have Danny and Michael Philippou, the directors of the already cult status Talk to Me. So please send in your questions to #SundanceLondon, and we will name check you if we get to read them out. So on today's 2 wonderful guest presenters, Michaela Walker from Dark Matter Marketing is interviewing invisible beauty directors and fashion legend Bethann Hardison and Frederic Tcheng. Then we have Paul Ridd, the head of acquisitions for Picture House Entertainment. I'm going to be chatting with him about Gregg Araki being our retrospective celebrated director. Very exciting stuff. And we have Andrew Durham talking about his film Fairyland. And lastly, the extraordinary Anton Corbijn is going to be joining us to talk about Squaring the Circle, which I'm very excited about. So, without further ado, we are going to move on to today's first guests. We have Mia Bays, director of the Film Fund at the British Film Institute, and Shaun Harrison, the programme and funding manager of the BFI Fund. Is that right? Have I said BFI Network? Sorry, yeah. Sorry. But Mia, I think I need to give Mia a bit more of an introduction, I'm afraid, Mia, because you are a bit of a UK film legend, and you are an Oscar and BAFTA-winning producer, as well as being a huge champion of female representation in cinema. So I'm not worthy, honestly, you've done so much. And former Sundance London producer, now director of the Filmmaking Fund at the BFI. What a great career, thank you. And, Mia is so approachable, so if you did want to chat with her about any of the things that you've done and the things that you're passionate about, I'm sure you're very happy to speak to people, including me.
Of course.
Shaun, what's it like to work with such a legend?
Oh, Mia's amazing, like she really is. Nicest person in the room at all times, and maybe the busiest person I've ever worked with. I've never seen you stop, like, ever. But yeah, she's great.
And Mia, tell me about your new role. What does it involve for you? Because you were the Sundance producer here. Do you miss it? Do you miss that role at all? Or?
Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, it was wonderful delivering this Sundance London Festival for 3 years, I think I did it. And yeah, I think it helped kind of pave the way in some way for having a profile to get to then step into this role, although I've done kind of everything on the film spectrum, so I think that sort of, all of that informed getting to this point.
Yes,
yeah.
And it couldn't be more perfect for you. And then organising this networking event, or being the partners for the networking event this morning. Can you tell me what a great fit, BFI, Sundance, Picture House, tell me why you decided to do that.
Well, I think it's really important for us all to, BFI Network is the talent development and short form arm of what we do, and then Filmmaking Fund is features, and I mean it all fits together. We're all part of the same family, and it's just really important that we're visible. I'm based in London and Nottingham. Shaun, you're...
Yeah, I'm up in Newcastle as well, and then our team is across Bristol, South East London, so like we are UK wide.
Yeah, so it's important that we're in person. Obviously, lots happen virtually, and it's so much, because of the pandemic and the fact that we all found ways of connecting and being more accessible and inclusive. We can connect in other ways, but it's nothing like being in the room. And often that's the big challenge that we get from filmmakers. We don't see you, we don't meet you in the flesh.
Yeah, and everything is often so London-centric. So that's great that you're up in Newcastle. And I mean, how would someone in Newcastle come and find you?
Yeah, so there's 5 English regions that each have a film hub, and within those film hubs there's talent executives. So there's the Southwest, the Southeast, Midlands, North, and then London. We've also got delegate partners in Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and we also work with Doc Society on documentary. So no matter where you are in the UK or what you do in terms of filmmaking, there's someone you can talk to. The local teams you can reach through our website, which is bfi.org.uk/network, and most of the talent execs will happily take meetings, do roundtables, and meet filmmakers of varying experience as well.
And they all have funds, most importantly. They all have funds. So it's early development of features and short form funding.
Yeah, so we've just closed the short film fund. We had just under 1,200 applications for that, so it's a lot. The next fund is just opened yesterday, is More Films for Freedom, which is a collaboration with British Council, and that is a focus on UK, Middle East and African filmmakers telling LGBTQIA+ stories. And then the next fund that Mia mentioned is the Early Development Fund. So that's for writers, directors and producers that haven't had a feature made yet, to take an idea to treatment stage, and then from then they'll move on to the filmmaking fund. So there's a clear path of progression through Network, through to BFI.
And what sort of people have you been helping? I know you were very involved with Scrapper, for instance. Can you tell us the story about how that all came about for you?
Well, that was greenlit before I took up my post. Charlotte Regan, it's her debut, but she's a real BFI star. So actually, her BFI Film Academy is the early education, like people's, particularly young adults, first entree into film, particularly when they're from underrepresented groups. That's a way of us promoting and helping people find a pathway into an industry that they perhaps never imagined they could. So Charlotte started there. Then her short films were backed by BFI Network, and then finally her debut. And that's such an incredible thing that lottery funding or kind of basically grants and public funds can do that, and access the talent that come from all over, and from places that are disadvantaged can find an access and develop their voice. Scrapper's such a fresh piece of work. It's wonderful, and it won the big prize at Utah, and then now it's opening this festival. It's a very proud moment.
It is an extraordinary moment, because it does feel like the industry in many ways is tightening into a certain group of people that only have access to it in some respects. And then you have someone like Charlotte just blow it out of the water, that, if you give people the opportunity, the creativity and the just how, and you do this very much, Mia, is that you give people a chance. They have stories to tell, and they're brilliant and they're interesting. It's so often just this small pool that we dip in time and time again, for mainstream films. So thank God for independence. And I know that you've got a couple of shorts that you're championing. Do you want to tell us about the shorts that people can see?
Yeah, so there's 2 shorts in the UK Shorts programme. One is My Eyes Are Up Here. That is a London film. And then the other one is The Veiled City, which is through Doc Society. I actually made a note on that one because I'll tell you the synopsis. It's really good and it'll probably get people interested. So, a sci-fi city symphony inspired by London's Great Smog of 1952. Created from archive footage, the film unfolds through fictional letters from a post-apocalyptic future.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. And when is that on? Is that tomorrow?
It's on tonight at 7:30, and then there's a show on tomorrow at 12:30, but I think it might be sold out already.
But with the sellouts, it's always worth just going along, because there might be returns. So that is always a possibility. So let's just have a quick chat about Sundance, because you've obviously been the producer here. Just along with the BFI, you do extraordinary things and they do extraordinary things. How relevant are they still? They've been around for such a long time. It's still so important. One hopes sometimes that these things don't have to be so important after so many years, because things should have changed. But it feels like that's not quite the case, Mia. What do you think?
Well, I think we all, what we fund are people and projects that are fresh and, bringing fresh perspectives and from particularly underrepresented groups. And Sundance has been doing that for years. That's the whole point of the festival. It's about, independently made films of cultural relevance that, you know, speak to the zeitgeist in a way that the mainstream just doesn't and can't. And often, you know, the mainstream is very often informed by what's happening on the fringes, right? And, you know, often, like, people who've been discovered at Sundance, you know, they become the kind of, you know, like the Tarantinos of the world and the Ira Sachs, you know, they become the kind of real, you know, then they become the leaders of their generation and they get snapped up by the mainstream, you know, but they always start in the indie sector, and Sundance shines a light on those people in a way that you can't do it yourself as a filmmaker. You don't have the means. It's a spotlight, it's a big spotlight. It's always, festivals are so essential, and for audiences as well, to be brave, to trust their taste. You know, you prove that actually, you know, go where they shine the light, and there's always something special.
There really is. Is there anything else that you're specifically looking forward to this weekend?
Well, yeah, not just this weekend, but obviously Scrapper being the big one. We're actually going to be doing a tour of Scrapper. Like, we're working with Picture House, BFI, so we're going to be taking the film out to the regions. Hopefully Charlotte will be there as well. So Sundance doesn't just finish this weekend, it continues next month as well.
Brilliant. And Mia, is there anything else that you'd like to recommend?
I just wanted to lift up Rye Lane because I just love that film so much, and that's another one that we funded, and that's screening on Sunday, and that's obviously been out in cinemas, but they've got the whole of most of the HODs, the people who are really important to making that film with Rain, and so I'm really looking forward to hearing them speak.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining me today. Big round of applause to Mia and Shaun. Woo!
Thank you.
We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Thanks very much, everyone. Don't go away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela. I'm the founder of Dark Matter, which is a creative agency that works very, very, very hard across film and book projects to connect with Black audiences. So I'm delighted to have my two very special guests here today, Bethann and Frederic. And they're here for the premiere of their film, Invisible Beauty. So first off, elevator pitch. If we were just in a lift and we had like 20 seconds to tell people what this film is about, what would you say?
I would say it's a film about a woman in her tireless journey to try to make a difference amongst those who needed education.
Okay, love that.
And that woman is Bethann Hardison,
Yes.
who co-directed with me. So we're both directors. It's kind of a special setup because we're both directing this together.
I wanted to know, first of all, like the tagline for this film is a model, an agent, an activist. You've heard that 1,000 times. But what does it feel like to hear that? Does it feel like people are talking about you? Or how does that feel?
It doesn't. I want to be very wonderful about it all, but it doesn't. I don't feel anything. I just hear them saying words, because I'm not really in my mind. I'm not those things, but I know that's the results of the work or the things that I've done. So you just hear people say it because that's how they have to describe things. It's very interesting to me.
Okay, you're very humble.
She is.
You're
yes.
very humble. Like, it's amazing. Your film is so inspiring. I watched it this morning with my mum. I told you backstage, and she was blown away. It's a film for all generations and all people. I think it's a film that people can learn from. Frederic, what brought you to this project?
So I met Bethann a few years ago when Bethann was getting an award from the CFDA, and they needed a 3-minute film to introduce her on stage. And so a producer found me, and I was just releasing my first film, and so we hit it off like right away, making this short film together. And I discovered, because I didn't really know who Bethann was at the time, and I had a crash course, and I interviewed her for like 5 hours, and I came out like, wow, this is a special story, and this is a special woman. And so then, after that, Bethann told me about a film project that she had started already, and that was dormant at the time. And so that's how we started talking about Invisible Beauty.
And at the top of the film, it kind of starts with someone asking you how you want the film to start. So how did you work? I'd love to know about the process of how you work together. You're laughing.
I just think this is the funniest thing. Hi, Andrew. Okay.
Yeah. How did you work together?
Well, the idea really was when you heard someone saying it was actually Frederic saying to me, "How do you want the film to start? How do you see the film starting?" And right away, because I grew up in Brooklyn and Bedford-Stuyvesant, I thought to myself, we start there. Because I have such strong memories of my childhood, being such an independent child, being a latchkey kid, a little bit of like a tomboy. It was so much nice to think of it that way. But the idea of really, he and I just had to get out of my way. I was in my own way for a long time. I was trying to do everything but tell my story. Right. And I didn't really think I had a story until people said to me, you need to do a documentary about you. And I'm like, oh, please. I'm just busy doing the work. And the goodness of meeting Frederic, he and I stayed in touch over a period of time. And when I was struggling a little bit about what I should do, which way, which up, I would speak to him. And then he got free of his last film. And he said, I want you to know that I'd love to do your film. I would like to do it, but I'd like you to come in and be the co-director with me, because I don't want to take the responsibility. You're alive, you're well, you're doing. I want you to do it with me.
So it's a very collaborative process.
Yeah, exactly. And that, you ask how the collaboration was. The collaboration you hear in the film, because it's like our conversations about how we should start, how we should cover certain stories, how we should end the film. All of that was, things we discussed, and that, I wanted to find a deeper way to make films. And so that was my way of expressing that with Bethann. And as she did really try to get out of her own way. She said that early in the process. And because as you said, she's very humble, and I think she is maybe at a time where she was like starting the book and starting this process of looking back. And for me, that was fascinating, just that's why starting with these flashes of someone's life and, how do you tell the story of someone's life was interesting to me. And I felt like Bethann was going through this process naturally, through the book.
I think the story of your life is told really beautifully, and it feels like it's in chapters.
Well, it's not really the story of my life.
Well, okay.
I mean, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but that's
It's
what I
a
want to talk
story.
about. Because when we got in the film, when you start talking about the 70s, Iman kind of brushes over it, and you do too. So I want to hear a little bit more about what was going on in the 70s. I wish
the
I was
70s
a
was
fly
great.
on the wall.
Oh, no, we had a good time in the 70s. You should have been there.
Just one story.
This is the best way I could tell it. One story, Studio 54.
Okay.
All right. Salvador Dali, he's there. And he wants to meet me. And he sends a young lady over to come and meet me. Please, please come over. I go, oh, God. Back in those days, anyone who had style could get into Studio 54. That's what Steve was so good about.
Would I have made it in?
Yeah, you'd made it in.
Okay.
You'd make it in. I mean, I don't want to say you wouldn't make it in because we're in front of all these people. but if you and I were together, I'd say, come on, Steve, let her in. Yeah.
Plus one.
Plus one.
I'm Bethann's plus one.
So this is the thing. You have so many people in Studio 54 because it became such an entity of life. Whether it be, whoever could be there. And that's what I said about someone like Salvador Dali wanting to meet me. And he doesn't even it was so funny. What am I going to do? And I'm so like young and dumb. You don't know what to say to a person, but you just try to smile because that was a place where everybody could move through each other and no one cared. So, and then also the great thing of talking about Versailles. That's something you see in the film a little bit. Yeah. So no, the 70s was great because it gave us all a chance to be unique, special, energies. It's right coming off the civil rights movements. Black is beautiful. Everything is happening. Hell no, we won't go. The Vietnam War. Everything is happening that's so culturally strong. And I really feel so disappointed that nothing outside of main countries like this, I don't know, the kids don't seem to be doing anything except for TikTok and other things.
We're doing stuff.
Huh?
We're doing stuff.
Okay.
Like, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the Black Girls Coalition because I think I would have been in that.
Yeah.
And then Frederic, I want to ask you about the archive footage, which is incredible.
Yeah,
but
that was surprising.
The Black Girl Coalition. Tell me about it.
That was something that it was so many girls of color working at that time, which was so unique in itself because of the fact that never had in the history of time had fashion models of color. On the runway, we were all designer models. And there was a separation between the print girl and the fashion model that worked for designers. There were two different divisions. When Calvin Klein had a great idea to put the print girl on the runway, it started to really replace the girl who really actually did that work. So at some given point, within a smack of 5 years or 6 years or 8, 9, 10 years, the girls of color start to be in the magazines. And that was really all credit to Regis Panez, who came in from French L to start American L. And because he just liked anything, he didn't care what color you were, so he started putting girls, and it competed with, Hearses and Bazaar and Vogue and Mademoiselle and Glamour at the time. So what it did, it changed the game. And so I was noticing all that. My agency was a white agency. I had black kids in it, Asian kids in it, Latin kids in it, but it was primarily a white agency because I had to compete.
Right.
So what happened is, in the end of the day, I just told Iman one day, I got an idea. Let's celebrate the girls and let me bring them together. And then eventually we would do something about, homelessness in our city at the time. So that's how it started.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think we've got 1 minute. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about the archive footage.
Well, Bethann always said, like, I have nothing, you know, and then we open the closets, and we open the boxes.
And there's everything.
And there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There was a
Surprisingly
lot.
enough.
And Keegan, Bethann's assistant, really archived everything, and then our producer also did. And so we managed to, you know, have a treasure, you know, kind of like of all these moments that were captured. Also, Bethann has worked with some of the most amazing photographers, you know, in the fashion world.
Yeah.
So we have all that also.
But I didn't work as a model with them. I worked with them as a company, with my agency.
Right.
Yeah.
And then this last question. Bethann, when are you going to Mexico next?
Oh, I'm so excited. You said it, and I felt the tequila. I don't go until December, but I go to Marrakesh tomorrow.
It's great there.
That's not in the film.
Bethann and Frederic, thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks.
Yay! Great audience.
We'll be back in 2 minutes with Flip.
patience, and sorry for you having to bear witness to lots of set changes. And Andrew, I'm so sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, I wasn't waiting. I was enjoying the last interview. So.
Yeah, it was fantastic,
It
right?
was great, yeah.
Yeah, and this is live TV, so you have to sort of go with the, you know, the highs and lows of what's going on and things. So, anyway, welcome Andrew Durham, and congratulations on your really beautiful and profoundly moving Fairyland. Oh, actually, round of applause as well, please. Andrew Durham, everyone. Sorry.
We should have applause signs like they do at the game shows.
Yeah. You've just introduced your UK premiere.
Yes, I was just down in the theater introducing it, so I left before the film started to roll, so I hope it's rolling. I hope everything's fine. But
Yes.
we're really, really excited to be here in London for this. This is a great opportunity to share the film with the UK audiences. I'm super, and our lead actress is British, so it's like a homecoming for her. So it's really exciting to be here and see her fans get to see her in the movie.
Absolutely. And so just tell me a little bit about getting your debut film accepted at Sundance, because that's quite an achievement. You know, yeah.
Yeah, it's It's kind of it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, because the scheduling of Sundance in January means that when you get invited to the film festival, which is incredible, like once you get that phone call, everything changes for you. It's a huge validation of all the hard work you've done, and it's also realizing all the doors that open up after you've been invited to Sundance. But it also means that you have a matter of weeks to finish your movie. So if you, and I wasn't prepared to actually submit the film to Sundance. I didn't think it'd be ready in time. We shot it in the summer, we edit in the fall, we submitted it, I was nervous about it, and then we get a call that we're invited, and you have a matter of weeks, which happened to fall over the holidays. And not just the Christmas holidays, but in the US we have the Thanksgiving holidays, so you're trying to do your color correcting and your sound mix and your ADR when everyone's closed and gone home for the holidays. So it's tough. I mean, we delivered, I think we premiered on Sundance on a Friday, and we delivered the movie to them on a Tuesday or something.
Oh
I mean, it
God.
was really, really, really tight. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. It's changed everything for this movie. It's given it these legs that we just never expected. But it was also pretty stressful.
Yes.
It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
It sounds
It was a lot of work, and I didn't go home for Christmas. It was kind of insane, but we got it on time, so that was good.
And when you hit send, did you think, I'm very happy with that? Or, oh God, I wish I could have changed that, and that? Or
you know, we hadn't watched the movie by the time we were really, no one had actually sat down, and we didn't do a screening with friends or anything like that. We didn't have sort of that final dress rehearsal. It was just, well, I think we fixed that, and I think we fixed this, and I remember that we were tweaking in the sound mix, and that we were tweaking on the color. Now just send it. So I didn't really see the movie. None of us saw the movie until that morning at Sundance on the big screen.
That's extraordinary.
I know, and probably not smart. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. It was very stressful, but they were, the Sundance people were telling us it's now or never. We need the movie today. We printed the brochures. You have to be here. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What can you do? So tell us your journey with Fairyland, because it's lovely. Because it is your debut, and you've been a photographer for a while, but it was recommended to you, wasn't it? Tell me about Sofia Coppola and...
Sofia Coppola is our producer on the film. She's an old friend of mine. We've known each other for 30 years almost. And we spent a lot of time when we were younger making short films together and doing art projects and traveling. And we share a very similar sensibility too. A lot of our aesthetics are kind of aligned. A lot of films that we see, we have similar filmmakers we like and photographers we like. And I'm actually a photographer by trade. That's my day job, a commercial photographer. And the two of us had been looking for something to collaborate on for a while, and the memoir Fairyland, which the film is based on, was actually sent to Sofia. The author was interested in having her adapt the book and direct the film. Sofia read the book, and she just thought, I grew up in San Francisco at around that same time in the 70s and 80s. I also grew up with a gay dad, and so this was something that Sofia thought I could bring probably some honesty to the story and a perspective that might be a little bit more aligned with Alicia Abbott's book. And so she said, you know what, I'll come on as a producer. We just need to convince Alicia Abbott that you're gonna hopefully direct the movie. So Sophia and I had to fly to Boston where she lives, and we had this meeting with her, and she was a little confused at first, probably, why is this man, he's a photographer, why does he want to make the movie? Why is it not Sophia? I think she was a little disappointed at first, but once Alicia heard my story and heard how our lives had so many parallels, she was really comfortable and felt that I was probably the best person to adapt it. So that's how it ended up with me.
And then she was so generous with you. Like, I was watching Scoot and Amelia talking about how she brought all her family photographs down to the set, and do you want to talk
She
about
was a great collaborator. I'd asked a lot of my filmmaker friends, what's it like when you option a book from somebody and you adapt it? How much of a relationship do you have with that? And consistently, most people are like, well, when somebody gives you the rights to their book, they're walking away from it, and they understand that filmmaking is a different medium, and most likely you should just focus on the filmmaking and not so much. Not that you wouldn't listen to them, but you just want to make sure it's separate, and you don't, and the two worlds don't get too,
It can
connected.
be messy.
It can be messy.
Yeah.
I think I was just nervous because not only was this Alicia's book, but it was based on her life story. So it's a bit different than if she had written a work of fiction. So this was her life, and it was her father's life, and it was very personal. So I actually took advantage of a lot of that, and Alicia was so generous. She introduced me to all of her father's journals that she actually based her memoir on, which were in the public library in San Francisco, and I spent a lot of time reading those, and that was pretty insightful too, because I realized that she herself took a lot of creative license when writing the memoir, so she understood the process that I would have to go through also, and and that's mostly about consolidating things and heightening things, you know. So she was great with that, and then also I would send her drafts of the script, and I would say, what do you think? And it was mostly not necessarily nitpicky about tiny things, you know, what day or whose name, but really was I maintaining the spirit of her story. Yeah. And she was very supportive with that. She came to set while we were shooting, and yeah, she did. She supplied the art department with all sorts of things. When you see the movie, there's like childhood toys lying around, those are hers. There's photographs on the wall of her relatives. Just those kind of Easter eggs that I think were sort of nice, and it made, you know, I think it made the story a lot. I think it made Alicia really comfortable that we were still embracing her personal story. Sure.
Would you say that the spirit of the story was very much that she was loved, and people can judge any kind of parenting or any type of parenting, but what she's saying is, I was loved, I'm so proud of my dad, and everything that he stood for, and everything that happened, you know, and it was just such an uplifting tale, even though it's very tragic. What would you say was the message of the film?
I think you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly what it was. What I loved about this book is that, first of all, it was a story of a pretty unconventional family, but I loved it because I grew up in a very similar environment, so it was the first time I read something. I hadn't seen any movies about this before, and that I was like, wow, so there is more than one type of good parent, and that's kind of been our consistent theme when we describe this movie, is that, yeah, her dad is complicated and flawed, but a lot of really traditional parent situations are the same, you know?
Especially 70s upbringing. I mean,
yeah.
I reckon...
Those of us that grew up in the 70s, we were raised feral. You know, we didn't... Our parents had no idea where we were.
I really remember wandering around parties, like in my jammies, just thinking, where's my mum and dad?
Yeah,
you know,
remember that?
okay.
Totally. And I was really excited to read that in the book, and we tried to capture this in the movie too, because the movie is told from Alicia's point of view, so we are literally looking up at the world in the first act of the movie, at all of this stuff that's happening, but we're also looking at it through a child's point of view. And back to your original question, it was just, you know, Steve, as unorthodox and as perhaps sort of a lot of people would look at it as like, maybe this isn't the appropriate environment for a kid, she grew up fine. She actually grew up really good. Like, she's a very stable, successful woman with a wonderful family, and she did that, and and I think Steve gave her so much of the confidence.
Yes.
And he taught her about independence, and he taught her to pursue her dreams as an artist. She's also a writer, so I think that those are the gifts parents should be giving their kids, is to make them into well-adjusted, interesting adults, you know? And that's what he did with her, and so I'm very happy to sort of share this story because, like I said, we've always believed that the theme of this movie is there's more than one type of good parent, and so this is one example of that in the world.
Exactly. Oh, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, please go and see Fairyland. It is a joy, it's a treat, and it's just visually stunning. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it's so great you being here at Sundance London. It's really a great opportunity.
Big round of applause, please, for Andrew
Thank
Durham.
you.
And we're going to be right back in 2 minutes, so don't go away. everybody. And I'm delighted to introduce you all to Paul Ridd, who is the Head of Acquisitions for Picture House Entertainment. Round of applause, please.
Hello.
So, Paul, you were supposed to be sat here with Gregg Araki, who...
I was.
Yes, I'm very sorry, who is unfortunately his plane was delayed, he's extremely sorry he couldn't be here. So we will try and get a VT to play either tomorrow or Sunday of Gregg, because it would be lovely. He's very keen to speak to everybody, obviously. So, but Paul, we are going to discuss Gregg behind his back, and I'd like you to tell me why he was chosen this year as our retrospective celebration.
Sure thing. So one of the things that we do, myself and Claire Binns, who's our managing director, who flies out with me to Sundance every year, one of the things we do when we're looking at films to potentially play in this edition of the festival in Sundance in London, is we look for all the main features, the new films that are playing, but we also kind of start thinking in January about a way to build a kind of repertory strand within the festival. We've done this every year since we've been doing the festival at Sundance London and Central. And previously, we've kind of chosen 3 films that have played in previous editions of the Utah Festival to kind of give a overview of some of Sundance past and some of the films that have done really, really well at the festival and gone on to be classics. This year, we decided, because of the premiere of the new restoration of Gregg Araki's Doom Generation, that we would build the whole strand this year around him, because for those of you who are familiar with his work, you will know that he is a sort of seminal, very, very important American filmmaker of the new queer cinema, and also integral to the sort of history of Sundance through the 80s, 90s, and up till today. So what we did was we saw Doom Generation, which I should say right now looks and feels and sounds never better in its new restored form, and we tried to program that film, chose that film, but also find 2 other films that we could play alongside those with Gregg to introduce and Q&A them. So we have Doom Generation playing, obviously, and we also have his first film from 1987, Three Bewildered People in the Night, which is just a stunning lo-fi film made for a few $1,000s with friends. And we also have his film from 2003, Mysterious Skin, which is perhaps maybe his most well-known film. So we'll be playing all 3 films across the 3 days of the festival. With Gregg, as I say, in attendance. And I think the important thing about it is just to really showcase how important and how different his films all are. So choosing those 3 specific films was kind of like a vital part of the whole process, and they're all wonderful, so please come and see them.
Absolutely. And the first film, The Three Bewildered People in the Night, that's never before been seen in the UK. Is that confirmed?
Our expansive research led to the belief that it has never been shown theatrically in the UK at all. It's never been available on any kind of home ent format. In fact, the way I saw it first was just on a YouTube link, which just looks terrible and just doesn't do justice to the visuals. But now we have, thankfully, from Strand, a new restored version of that film as well, playing in the festival, so it's amazing.
So tell me your first encounter with Gregg Araki. When did you first get your mind blown or totally effed up, as we've decided to call this particular strand?
Well, I saw Mysterious Skin on DVD back in the early 2000s, and being a big fan of bands like Slowdive and Cocteau Twins, and specifically the music of Robin Guthrie, who did the score for Mysterious Skin, it was kind of my route into that film, because he did this incredible score for the film. And I saw it, and I was just completely blown away by the way that it told this story of kind of childhood sexual abuse, but in a way that was totally new and fresh and different, and not at all kind of repetitious in any way, because you've seen a lot of films on that subject. And the way that it kind of showcased these amazing breakout performances by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Brady Corbet. And so I sort of fell in love with that film and sort of watched it over and over, and sort of thought about how it was composed visually and all the sonic cues that he puts in. And then in a sort of rush, watched a bunch of the other movies, so like Totally Fucked Up, Doom Generation, The Living End, and later on things like Smiley Face, and yeah, I mean, it's just an amazing body of work.
And do you see his influence everywhere? You know, what sort of directors do you think owe homage to him, or is that impossible to say?
Well, I think it's just very sort of important to look at a film specifically like Doom Generation and think about it as something that's sort of bold and punkish and rude and difficult and sexy and fun, And think about that film in the context of kind of like the mid-90s cinema. It's a very violent movie, it's a very explicit film, but it's sort of coming at a point in American cinema where you've got movies like Natural Born Killers and Pulp Fiction and all this stuff that deal with violence in America and all these kind of big taboo themes, but in a way that it's always quite prescriptive, almost kind of moralistic. And you look at something like Doom Generation, which is just kind of a celebration of queer sexuality and colour and music and all those things, and it just feels so different. And I think he is so ahead of his time. If you think now about, you know, big shows like Euphoria or whatever, those are so influenced, particularly visually, by his style, that it just feels amazing to see this kind of time capsule of that time. And it, you know, the idea that it was new and different at that time and still feels fresh is what is testimony to its sort of lasting power.
And what do you think we can expect from Gregg himself? He's going to be doing a Q&A, he's going to be doing a talk. You know, like, have you even spoken to him yourself before?
Well, I actually spoke to him about 10 years ago when he had a film out called Kaboom, and very briefly had a kind of like conversation for a podcast. And it's amazing the kind of clarity and interest with which he talks about not only his own films, but his influences and his love of cinema. He's clearly an extremely cine-literate figure, but also somebody who has his own completely unique vision. So that was the first time I kind of met him. But I think in terms of what I'm interested to hear him talk about this weekend is, well, first of all, Doom Generation, the Q&A he did back in Utah with the cast, with James Duval and Jonathan Shake. That was just one of the highlights of Sundance back in January, because all of them were so eloquent and funny and talking about their film. And I think seeing that again with a London audience who may not have seen the film before will be super exciting. But I'm also interested to see what he has to say about the process of kind of literary adaptation, because if you look at a film like Mysterious Skin, which kind of is a bit different from his other films, it is an adaptation of a novel, Scott Himes' incredible book, Mysterious Skin, and I'm just interested to hear what he has to say about that whole process.
Fantastic. Paul Ridd, thank you so much. You are such an incredible font of information around anything cinema. Round of applause, please, for Paul Ridd. Thank you. And we will get that interview. So can we go to VT, please, for people that are watching on the internet, and we'll be back in 2 minutes with Anton Corbijn.
Best festival ever. Tremendous industry programme. Tremendous films. Great guests. Lots of tickets sold. What a way to celebrate cinema. And we're ready to rock and roll.
To be here in London with all of you is really special. I love the first day of a festival.
The people that are here, the people who've signed up to be part of the industry programme, all of them are brought together by their passion for independent cinema.
For indie filmmakers, it's the ultimate film festival, right?
I'm excited to see how these movies interact with audiences.
Always at the cutting edge. And so for me to then have made my feature debut and being able to debut that at Sundance, I was like, this can't be real? I was like, wait, what?
How long has it taken you to make the film?
7 years.
Wow.
We were so excited. We were in the middle of our edit when we got accepted, so it made us a little nervous. And it makes you feel like you're seen and understood, and I think that is really the best part of sharing with an audience.
I started attending Sundance in the 80s, and they never cared about what color you were. You had a good story to tell, they were there.
So I was lucky enough to be a part of years ago on the Ignite scheme, where they take young filmmakers from around the world and they give you this incredible mentoring opportunity.
You know, when I first got into Sundance, it was just enormous. Oh my God, okay, maybe this could happen for me.
They're just not inviting your movie, but they're really inviting you as a filmmaker, and they really want you to excel.
We have a lot of fellowships, grants, support.
Hello and welcome to Live from the Studio, brought to you by Audible.
I also recommend that people do always check out the docs.
Yes.
Because Sundance docs are really special. It's great for us to be here to talk to people about how we can potentially support them in their dreams.
It's cool to be here with Scrapper, such a personal film to me, and everyone's here, so it's nice to celebrate it.
They might just say this is the Mona Lisa of films.
I think we always wanted to tell a joyful kind of working class story.
Let's give a round of applause for Claire and everyone at Picture House for all their amazing work.
Hello and welcome back to Live from the Studio, sponsored by Audible, and I am here with the legendary Anton Corbijn. A huge round of applause, please, everybody. Woohoo! So, welcome, Anton, and
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and for this incredible documentary. It is quite extraordinary that probably some of the most iconic artwork ever created, globally recognizable, has relatively unknown creators.
Yes, at least these days, I don't think people growing up now are not so aware of album sleeves and the work that goes into it. But when I grew up, 60s, 70s, album sleeves were a major part of my life as a music lover. And Hipgnosis were the place to go to for the sleeves. And a lot of these really well-known sleeves are done by them.
And can you explain to people who Hipgnosis were exactly and why you chose to make your first ever documentary about them?
Hipgnosis were a record sleeve design studio that operated from the late 60s to the early 80s. And with two guys from that met each other in Cambridge and went to school with the Pink Floyd guys. And then moved to London with the Pink Floyd guys, and their first work was with Pink Floyd, and they still work for Pink Floyd. There's one of these two people still alive, but they were uneducated in art, but they educated themselves basically. One became a good photographer, the other guy became a great ideas man, and they sold themselves as a professional studio, and it worked.
But what was it that you thought that you needed to tell? What was the story what drew you to it?
I think that, for me, album sleeves were a major part of my life. Like I said, when I grew up, when you bought an album, of course it's a lot about the record, but it's also a lot about the record sleeve. And that sort of love for that artwork, I don't think it's no longer there, and I think it's really important people see that it was there at some point and how it influenced that whole generation. And the man who is still alive is called Poe, and he's a fantastic storyteller. So the combination of all these images and record sleeves and his stories firsthand, was something I was attracted to. It was his idea to ask me, I have to say. It was not my idea to come to him, but he came to Amsterdam and basically sold himself.
Yeah, I mean, you must be kindred spirits because you are, a very iconic photographer of your generation, and likewise for him, so he sought you out with purpose.
Yes, because I also make album sleeves, and I'm a photographer, like you said, so I think there was that kind of crossover. But I'm a photographer first and foremost, and he's a designer more.
But he saw in you the documentarist that he needed, which
Yes, I mean, it's a first for me, and I don't think I'm a natural documentary maker, but it worked really well, and we did it all during COVID, and it worked out, and it was fantastic.
So I was listening to an interview with you where you said you don't like to have an entourage, you like to keep things really simple, and I wondered if that was the same with your filmmaking. Because I loved how he seemed to be sat in like a hallway, just looking down at you, telling the story. And I could imagine you sat in the hallway with him, just listening. That's probably not how it was at all, but...
Well, it was a documentary, so it's a small crew, full stop. It's very different from the movies I make, where there are a lot of people. But in my photography, it's either me or me with one assistant. It's very basic. And I'm very hands-on, and I like it that way.
And with him telling his story, it's almost like a sort of biblical, brotherly, tale of sadness and betrayal and tragedy and all kinds of things, and epic highs and lows. I mean, were you prepared for how dramatic it was? And I love how you introduced him at the beginning with this burden of his portfolio, just walking along the road.
Yeah, that's sort of the one idea I had going into it. Poe carrying the story and carrying his past on his shoulders. It's a fantastic past, but that's what he's carrying for the rest of his life.
He is. is, and it's extremely moving.
Yeah, oddly enough, it is.
Yes, because you think, this is what they did, but there was so much more to the story than the design. They were brothers, and they.
But yeah, there's a story of loss as well as anything, and of course, old age plays into it, and that, is moving.
It is extremely moving, and of course, it's in your trademark black and white. And I wonder if black and white has become for you a kind of infinite palette, or is it just still quite simple? You keep it simple. It's just so exquisite to look at. It seems like you have.
I have to say, I went into the film not thinking it was going to be black and white, but color.
Okay.
But because we had to use so much archival footage, it's shot by other people you have no control over, and it became such a mishmash of direction and colors that I felt we had to go back to basics and make it black and white and unite it all. And then the things in color are the record sleeves, and these were the idea that the record sleeves were the highlight of your day when you looked at them.
Yeah, yes, and the colour is absolutely punching through it as well, isn't it? It's just gorgeous. So just to wrap up, you have Colin Firth as a co-producer. How did that all come about?
Oh, he was on set the whole time, pushed me around. Well, I think I saw Colin once, to be honest, but he's a busy man, and he's totally stimulating. He was a very great stimulus for the film. He's a great music lover, and he knows the B-side of most singles. He knows his stuff.
I was interviewing him once for a film, and we didn't talk about the film at all. We just talked about Led Zeppelin. It was brilliant.
Yeah, that's Colin.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Anton Corbijn, for joining us today. I'm so honoured that you could be here. Can I have a huge round, please, for Anton Corbijn? And go and see Square in the Circle. It's this evening, isn't it? At 9 o'clock.
It is this evening, yeah, but it's sold out.
It's sold out. There might be some
There'll
returns.
be more.
Oh, we'll be back in 1 minute. So with Wendy, who's going to do a roundup for the day. We have Wendy Mitchell, producer extraordinaire.
Hello again. Hello again. Like, I do that every time, don't I? I didn't drop the silverware this time.
Thrown a fork off the table, glasses smashing.
I'm so happy to be back because this festival has so kicked into high gear.
It has.
We, I keep saying buzzy. I need a new word. I'm going to use a thesaurus tonight and find a new word for buzzy, but this building is alive. The cinemas are alive. The talks are alive. I wanted to maybe just mention a few highlights from tomorrow's program here at Picture House Central that still have a few tickets left, because I don't want to frustrate people for the ones that are sold out. There's some brilliant sold out things. I want to mention Mutt.
Oh, Mutt.
Mutt, I know you're going to be talking to Leo.
I'm a huge
soon.
fan of that film. Yeah.
It's such a beautiful film, and I think it's sort of unexpectedly subtle and just life-affirming, and you just fall in love with this character and the actor.
Yeah.
And we have Leo Miel.
Mayo.
He told. They told me last night that it rhymes with meal.
Oh, okay. Ignore me.
So no, but thinking of changing it to sound more exotic. So Leo's here. Mutt is just this beautiful film. Leo will be at the screening. Leo will be doing the Q&A. It's going to be great. Leo's also talking, because we love Leo so much, I guess. Leo's also talking on a panel we're doing, a public panel, not just for the industry, looking at the modern gaze of sex on screen. And this is a powerhouse panel. Ira Sachs is going to be on there. Gregg Araki is going to be on there. Leo is on there. And it is going to be moderated by our favorite author, Anna Bogatskaya. That one's going to be really hot. Even having those people on the
in the
stage
same
together
room.
is amazing. And what is my last pick for the day? I'm going to go with Fantastic Machine.
Oh, sorry, I keep doing that to everybody.
Because they're all so
You've got to
good.
stop saying Buzzy, and I've got to stop.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Fantastic Machine is an amazing documentary by Max and Axel, who are going to be, I know, talking to you. It's looking at just sort of the gaze of cameras and how image influences our life.
And how pathologized it's become.
And I'm making it sound quite academic, because these guys are really, really smart. I've known them a few years, and I thought, oh, maybe this film is going to be so smart, I'm going to feel like an idiot when I watch it. But no, it is very smart, but it's so wildly entertaining.
Yes.
It's looking at funny, TikTok influencers, and it's just a roller coaster of thought and fun and celebrating images from the Lumiere brothers to like idiots on TikTok.
Yeah, and
so I really recommend that.
It makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you go, oh my God, what are we doing?
What are we doing with our lives? It makes you almost put down the selfie camera. We'll see. But Max and Axel are here. They're such eloquent speakers and do a really fun Q&A. So that's just 3 little tips. There's obviously a packed program on Saturday. Come on down, see if anything else is available for sale. But I know as of right now, there's at least have a few tickets left for those.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Wendy. Huge round of applause for Wendy and for all our guests today. Thank you so much for joining us at Live from the studio, and we will see you again tomorrow at 4.